Guys, it's Julia Papworth with Waiver Wire Wins for Win Daily for week 7 of the fantasy season. You can find me on social media. I am at Julia Papworth. All right, guys, let's get to it. We're going to start with the quarterbacks. First of all, this week was absolutely crazy with injuries. We saw a bunch of quarterbacks go down, so you might be in need of one for this coming week, especially since it is a crazy bye week. There are 6 teams on a bye. So may I suggest to you, Sam Howell, the Washington Commanders quarterback. He was 14 for 23 for 151 yards on Sunday. He threw 3 touchdowns. He has been a top 14 quarterback in all but 1 week this season. And he is definitely streamable during these bye weeks. Like I said, there are 6 teams on a bye this week. And the Commanders play at the Giants this week. So Sam Howell, definitely an option for you. And he's only 38% rostered. So there's a high chance that he's out there. You also might want to take a look at, dare I say it, Desmond Ridder. He is 9% rostered. He threw 47 times on Sunday. He only connected on 28 of those, but he had over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. In classic Ridder form, he did have 3 interceptions. That end of that game was not great for him, but he also ran for 18 yards. The good thing about Ridder is that Arthur Smith seems to be allowing him to throw, which is great. He's only had 1 week with under 32 passing attempts, and I believe that was week 1. So it seems like that Atlanta offense is kind of starting to go where we might want it to. He's an option as well. They're at Tampa Bay this coming week. Also, keep an eye on Malik Willis, Tennessee Titans. They are on a bye this week, but Ryan Tannehill was seen on crutches after the game. They think he has a high ankle sprain. I don't know what that means week-wise. And to be fair, the Tennessee Titans passing offense isn't necessarily one I want a huge part of. But if you are in a deeper league, a super flex league, Malik Willis does have a little bit of running ability as well. So he's someone to sort of keep your eye on. And don't forget about Kyler Murray, 23% rostered. He's on the PUP list. He's eligible to return anytime. I think he's got 14 more days, I believe. So I think we might see something happening soon with him as well. Running backs. Chuba Hubbard is the first guy to look at. He's 59% rostered. Carolina Panthers. Miles Sanders has just not been great. He was out with a shoulder injury this week, and he'd been nursing a lot of stuff over the last few weeks. Chuba Hubbard stepped in. He had 19 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. He could easily be a fantasy starter for as long as Sanders is out, and even if Sanders comes back, we had kind of seen the snap share getting closer to 50-50. Carolina is on a bye this week, so Miles Sanders might be back, but Hubbard is someone to consider, especially if you need running back help. Deonta Foreman, Chicago Bears, 56% rostered. In classic Deonta Foreman style, he came in to help out a team with injured running backs. He's done that many times before. He played 60% of the snaps. He only got you just under 8 fantasy points. He had 15 carries for 65 yards. And this week, he's probably going to be the backup. Roschon Johnson, who is 52% rostered, should be coming back. Roschon Johnson was out for a concussion. This is all a domino effect with the Chicago Bears backfield. But Johnson's going to come back. Khalil Herbert has at least 3 more weeks on the IR. So Roschon Johnson should slide into being that running back 1. You've got Deonta Foreman is probably going to be RB2. Keep an eye out for Darrington Evans as well. He had a bunch of snaps. So it's kind of a line, right? I would suggest to pick up Roschon Johnson. He's your best bet. He's going to be the running back 1 in that offense. He's averaging about 4.9 yards a carry, and he's got 2 really good matchups over the next 2 weeks. He's got the Raiders and the Chargers. Justin Fields' injury kind of up in the air. He hurt his thumb. They were saying he dislocated it and popped it back in. We don't know if that means he's going to miss a game. If he misses a game, there's even more rushing upside for Roschon Johnson and Deonta Foreman in deeper leagues. Keep an eye out for Jaleel McLaughlin, Denver Broncos. He was the waiver wire darling a couple weeks ago, 54% rostered. He's been the most effective of that Denver backfield. He's averaged 6.5 yards a carry compared to 4 yards a carry for Javonte Williams, and his avoided tackle rate is double that of Javonte. Unfortunately, Samaje Perine has sort of become an afterthought, and it seems like the coaching staff in Denver is really pro McLaughlin. So if he's still out there, go ahead and take a look at him, grab him. even though that offense isn't fantastic. Tajay Spears, we've been telling you to pick him up for weeks and weeks and weeks. He's still only 48% rostered. If you have room to hold Spears, I would highly recommend that. His usage was a little down this week, but he's still averaging more than a full yard after contact per carry, more than Derrick Henry. And I think that transition's happening. And you kind of want to be on board when it does. They do have a bye this week, so I think a lot of people may drop him. They won't be able to hold him. Just keep an eye out. Couple other guys to look at. The main situation is the Christian McCaffrey injury in San Francisco, which brings up the options of Eli Mitchell, who is 28% rostered in Yahoo, and Jordan Mason, who's only 5% rostered in Yahoo. Both of those guys came in with CMC down for the majority of that game. Eli Mitchell only had 2 carries and he ran 5 routes, and Mason had 5 carries for 27 yards and a touchdown. He ran 9 routes. I kind of think that Mason is the guy to go after. Mitchell had missed a couple games due to an injury, and he just didn't seem to have it. I think either guy is good to have if CMC does miss some time. It's a running offense. It's a high-powered offense. So I don't think it would be bad holding either one of those guys. Finally, you can take a look at Keontae Ingram in Arizona. He's 20% rostered. Everybody ran to go pick up his friend, which wasn't used that much. But Keontae Ingram does have some great matches coming up. He didn't have a great game on Sunday, but he showed that he's going to be the Cardinals running back 1, right? He led in touches, and he's showing that he's the guy as long as James Conner is going to be out of the lineup. They are at Seattle next week. We'll start with KJ Osborne, Minnesota Vikings. He's 66% rostered, and I think a lot of people went to go and pick him up when Justin Jefferson went down to injury last week. He ran the same amount of routes as Jordan Addison did. They both ran 33, and they had the same amount of targets this week with 5. Osborne went 4 for 5 for 48 yards. They do play the 49ers next week, which is not a great matchup, but again, injuries, bye weeks, he's someone you might have to consider if he's available for you. JSN, Seattle Seahawks. We might be kind of on the brink of that second half rookie breakout that we've all been promised for Jackson Smith-Njigba. He had 39 routes this week. It was the same as DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and he had 5 targets, which was the second highest behind those 2 guys as well. He had a career high in snaps this week, career high in routes run, and a career high in receiving yards with 48. Keep an eye on him. If you dropped him, I get it. It's one of those things where sometimes you can't hold on to someone waiting for a breakout. If you have him, I would hold him. And if you have room to pick him up, I would seriously consider it. Another rookie, Rashee Rice, Kansas City Chiefs, 45% rostered. He went 4 for 4 and 72 yards on the Thursday night game. He's had 8 catches in the last 2 games, and he looks like he is the wide receiver 2 behind Travis Kelce, your wide receiver 1 in Kansas City. They play the Chargers this coming week. Again, it's hard to own a piece of the Chiefs passing attack that isn't Travis Kelce and start them with confidence. I get it, but he's definitely someone who might be on the verge of a breakout as well. Curtis Samuel, Washington Commanders. He's 34% rostered. He was second in targets, receptions, and receiving yards this week. He had almost a 20% target share over the past 3 games. Sunday, 4 for 4, 42 yards, and a touchdown. Again, he's not insanely great, but they play the Giants next week. We talked about Sam Howell in the quarterback segment. He's going to Curtis Samuel. As much as I would like him to go to Jahan Dotson, he's going to Curtis Samuel. And finally, in the wide receivers, Josh Downs, Indianapolis Colts. He is 33% rostered. He went 5 for 8. He had 21 yards and 1 touchdown, and he had the second most targets for the Colts on Sunday. Gardner Minshew is the guy. We don't know how long Anthony Richardson's going to be out. There is talk that he might have season-ending surgery, and if that's the case, Minshew's there supposedly for the rest of the year. Alec Pierce also went down with injury as well. He hasn't been a huge part of the Colts passing game, but if that's just another person out of the rotation, Downs should see even more work going forward. And they play Cleveland this week. See, every week it's rough out there for a tight end. 6 teams are on a bye. We got some digging to do, right? I will go back to the well with Logan Thomas, Washington Commanders, 59% rostered. I know he had not a great game on Sunday. He only had 1 target for 2 yards. I wouldn't throw in the towel. I still think he's going to be a good option out there. He's at the Giants next week, so I think that's a good matchup for him. Luke Musgrave, Green Bay Packers, 18% rostered. He had a bye this week, so I feel like a lot of people probably dropped him because they didn't want to hold two tight ends. He had a really decent game against Vegas in week 5, and they play Denver next week. So that is quite a nice matchup for Mr. Musgrave. And finally, a rookie tight end, Michael Mayer from Las Vegas. He's only 5% rostered. They've been trying to get him involved the past couple weeks, and he finally seemed to have it this week. He went 5 for 6 for 75 yards, and the Raiders play Chicago next week. We don't know if it's going to be Garoppolo. He did leave with a back injury, but even if it isn't, it would probably be Brian Hoyer, who I think is still pretty good for the passing game. All right, guys, that's it. Week 7. This year's flying by. Once again, you can find me on social media at Julia Papworth, and thank you for checking out Waiver Wire Wins with Win Daily.